What if your entire life was a performance and you didn't even realize it? Every smile, every yes when you wanted to say no, every time you bent over backward just to keep others happy, it's all been for them, hasn't it? But here's the harsh truth. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be enough for everyone. And while you're breaking yourself to earn their approval, they're taking everything. Your time, your energy, your identity. It's not just exhausting, it's destroying you. But there's a way out. In this video, I'm going to show you how to break free from approval addiction and finally start living for yourself. Approval addiction isn't just a desire to be liked, it's an emotional and psychological need to be validated by others. It starts in childhood, often unknowingly, as we seek praise and approval from our parents, teachers, and peers. Over time, this need grows, and we carry it into adulthood. The problem is that this need becomes so ingrained that we can't even recognize it anymore. It's subtle, and it often masquerades as being kind or agreeable, but it's actually a dependency. When approval becomes your focus, your sense of self-worth is constantly tied to the external validation of others. You find yourself measuring your actions based on how others perceive you instead of what feels right for you. This can result in anxiety, self-doubt, and a lack of confidence. It's easy to convince yourself that you're doing this because you care about others, but in reality, it's often because you fear rejection or judgment. Think about how often you've said yes to something just to avoid conflict, even when you didn't want to. How many times have you hidden your true feelings to make someone else feel comfortable? This is the behavior that keeps the cycle of approval addiction going. It's easy to fall into and it's difficult to break out of, but understanding it is the first step toward freedom. While seeking approval might seem harmless in small doses, when it becomes a constant habit, it can be incredibly detrimental to your mental and emotional well-being. The first danger is stress. Living in a way that always prioritizes others' opinions leads to a constant state of anxiety. You feel like you have to perform at all times, and the pressure to live up to everyone's expectations can leave you feeling drained. Stress takes a toll on your body, too. It leads to sleepless nights, fatigue, and an inability to relax. It becomes all-consuming. The second danger is that approval addiction disconnects you from your true self. It's difficult to know what you want when you're constantly adjusting to the needs and wants of others. Your identity becomes tied up in their approval, not your own values and desires. You're no longer living authentically. You're living for others. Over time, this erodes your sense of self, leaving you feeling lost, confused, and disconnected from your purpose. Another danger is that the quest for approval can lead to resentment. When you're constantly putting others' needs first, you start to feel like your own needs don't matter. You might begin to feel bitter toward those you're trying to please, even though they may not have asked for it. This resentment builds up over time, creating emotional distance and frustration. And the worst part? The people you're trying so hard to please are often oblivious to the sacrifices you're making. As you continue to lose yourself in a cycle of pleasing, your self-esteem can take a nosedive. Because you're measuring your worth through the approval of others, you might begin to feel unworthy and incapable of standing on your own. This leads to a lack of self-trust and creates a sense of insecurity that will make it even harder to break free. Eventually, you become trapped in a vicious cycle, unable to escape because you've become so reliant on external validation. It's human nature to want to be liked, and to some extent, we all seek validation. However, the harsh reality is that no matter how hard you try, you can't please everyone. People have different values, preferences, and opinions. Trying to cater to each person's needs is like trying to be a chameleon, constantly changing to fit the situation. But the truth is, you will always encounter someone who isn't satisfied, no matter how much effort you put in. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to please people who didn't really care, or people who, no matter what you did, always found something wrong. The harder you try to please everyone, the more disconnected you get from your own true desires and sense of self. Every time you change who you are to suit someone else's expectations, you lose a little piece of yourself. This is where approval addiction can be particularly dangerous. Not only does it waste your energy and time, but it also becomes a self-reinforcing cycle of negativity. The more you try to please others, the more you become dependent on their approval. It becomes so ingrained in your behavior that it feels impossible to break out of, even when you know it's holding you back from living authentically. The pressure to please everyone leaves you stuck in a constant cycle of self-doubt. You question your decisions, unsure if they'll upset someone. You change your actions and words to match what you think others want, leaving little room for your true feelings. This not only makes you feel exhausted, but also causes inner conflict. You're always at war with yourself, trying to please others, while suppressing your own desires. When you finally accept that you can't please everyone, it's incredibly liberating. You stop the cycle cycle of overthinking and begin to make decisions based on what feels right for you, not what others expect. This shift takes time, but it's essential for breaking free from approval addiction. Breaking free from approval addiction is a process, but it is entirely possible. The first step is to recognize that you have the power to choose your own path. No one else can define your worth. Start by setting boundaries. Saying no might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to saying yes to keep the peace, but it's essential for reclaiming your time and energy. The more you practice saying no, the easier it becomes. Setting boundaries is crucial, but it's not just about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to yourself. When you prioritize your own needs and desires, you start to regain control over your life. This may involve making decisions that are difficult in the short term, but lead to greater fulfillment in the long run. Another step is self-compassion. Start treating yourself with kindness. Instead of focusing on how you might disappoint others, focus on what will truly make you happy. What are your own values and goals? What would make you feel fulfilled? Practice self-care both physically and emotionally. By nurturing yourself, you build the resilience to stand up for your needs without feeling guilty. Trusting your instincts is also critical. Stop second-guessing yourself and start making decisions based on what feels right to you. If you want to pursue a hobby or career change, don't wait for everyone's approval. Trust that your own judgment is enough. The more you practice trusting yourself, the more confident you'll become in your decisions. Another key to breaking free is to confront your fear of rejection. Understand that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. In fact, it's a sign that you're living authentically. Rejection doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means that person isn't aligned with your true self. It's an opportunity to let go of people who don't resonate with your authentic energy. Embracing your true self means letting go of the fear of judgment and living for yourself. When you stop seeking approval, you create space for personal growth and authenticity. You become free to explore your passions without worrying about others' opinions. This freedom brings a sense of fulfillment that constant approval seeking can't provide. Living authentically also strengthens your relationships. When you stop trying to please others, you attract people who appreciate you for who you are. Your relationships become more meaningful, based on mutual respect, not performance. The more you embrace your true self, the more your life aligns with your values. You begin making choices that honor your needs and desires, and the people who matter will support you. These are the relationships that bring joy, not stress. As you live authentically, you'll feel more confident and grounded. Your decisions will align with your inner truth, and you'll experience greater inner peace. Living authentically opens new possibilities in your career, relationships, and well-being. Breaking free from approval addiction is a journey, but it's one that's worth taking. You have the power to stop seeking validation from others and start living for yourself. By setting boundaries, practicing self-compassion, and trusting your instincts, you can live a life that's authentic, fulfilling, and free from the exhausting need for constant approval. Remember, you're enough just as you are. Now it's time to embrace that truth and live confidently.